Alright, so once we have some rules for PBR set up and now we know what to do and what we should not, let's just go in and texture a character. So I can keep on going talking about more basic and try to explain everything the best I can, but don't feel there's any point doing that. That will only extend our time in this class and that won't give you guys much. There are so many videos out there that does the same thing, like explaining every basic things over and over again. But I feel you're not going to learn much unless you do things yourself many times. So that's what we are going to do here. Just jump in the hot zone and start texturing a whole character. So there will be some spoon feeding here and there, but if you're comfortable with substance and you have followed through the first week, most of the other things should be easier to understand. So texturing a whole character just in the second week might become a bit overwhelming for some of you guys who are still getting familiar with Substance Painter, and there might be some mistakes here and there, but that's what we are here for, to learn from our mistakes and mess up as much as we can. One thing I was taught as a student, and I still keep that thing close to me, is mess up a lot and mess up often, especially when you're learning, so you know what your mistakes are and you can improve on it and don't do them over again. So even if you don't get things done this week, the third week is kept a bit lighter, so some of you guys who did not get enough time or still learning Substance and getting familiar with it will have enough time to breathe in and catch up before we move on to next stuff. So one last thing before we start, the demo part of our course will mostly be non-edited for every single week, so you can also see where I make mistakes and how I fix them. They might be speed up here and there to save us some video time, but if you feel at some point any of the things are going faster or slower, these are recorded videos and you can always play them as you feel like. Alright, so let's get started with this one. So first, let's have a look at our texture sets and our UVs. So if I go over to my texture set list, we have our skull, which is named Chico Head. I might rename it for you guys. We have our legs and we have the torso. Let me open our 3D and UV mode. And if I undock this guy, the first we have is our skull, which UVs are done like this. We have more chapters in this week after this demo of texturing about unwrapping a character, shading our low poly to get the best bakes, and baking using a naming convention. The things that we left out last week for this week, so we're going to cover that as well. So let's start with our torso. So the UVs right here are a bit crappily placed. By that I mean so this is how our UV has been done, and all of these empty space, the gray colored area you see, are not being utilized, but our engine will also read the pixels which are there. So every place which does not have our UV island is being wasted on. And if I show you guys the legs, it might have the same issue. And it's worse in this case. If I remember correctly, the error right here from my side was done because I wanted to keep a same texel density. What I mean by texel density is if I have same texel density for this guy and this guy is, if I zoom in, so my substance is running a little slow, so I'm just gonna go in and make my texture sets 2K instead of 4. Okay, so we're gonna talk about how to keep our scene lighter and optimize it so we can texture it better soon. So let's close this guy and let's go back to our UVs. So as I was saying, the texel density, if let's say I have a diamond pattern and I tile it on my first texture set and on my second texture set, both by 4, the size of the diamond up here should be the same size as the diamond down here. Apps like Maya and Max have settings under the UVs to give you the same texel density. They automatically makes all of your UV island the same texel size, so you can just arrange them afterwards. But things and organization of the UVs from my side should have been done better here. And that's something you guys should look out for, is not to have this much empty space, even though this can be tolerated if I don't have any other way around, but this This could have been done a lot better. So another thing you might notice on our UVs is some of the UV island are moved upwards. So this is a common practice. I won't say it's common, but it's often used is overlapping your mirrored objects. Let me zoom out. So this leg right here is a symmetry of this leg, and I moved all of the UV island this one had on top of this one. So this practice is often used to save you UV space, and you can have more texture size for those parts. The reason I push them up is your texture is obviously gonna tile even in Substance or in an engine one by one. And the another reason I pushed it up is if I had these guys overlapping here and if I baked it like that, Substance would have a really hard time figuring it out. So I pushed it up to have better bakes. Okay, so the autosave feature is pretty annoying when you're recording, but anyway. So we were talking about having these UVs on top of these ones. To recap, we had it so we can have the same texture on these guys, but much more detailed, and we don't have to use much UV space to have that detail. And if I go to my torso, you might see it has the same thing. So right there, the right arm is complete a mirror of the left one, and I can demonstrate just by creating a layer. Let's create a fill layer and ignore my naming convention right there. Let's create a black mask, and if I paint here, it's gonna mirror on my right arm. Again, the practice of overlapping UV islands is a practice that is done in many games, and this might change through every studio or game you work on, so that depends on the pipeline that has been set up. For the purpose when I was making it, this is something I relied on. You can also make a character in a studio or for your personal project where nothing is overlapping on each other, where every right part is overlapping on the left part, where some of the right part is overlapping on the left part. This thing will depend on the pipeline you're doing or your studio is doing. So this is something that changes from person to person or game to game. One more thing with mirroring is if I come to my legs and if I go in and zoom on the thighs, you might notice the thighs are not mirrored like these guys. To rephrase myself, they are mirrored, but they are not overlapped like these guys. Reason being, they're super close, and if I had this guy overlapping on this guy, we face an effect called butterfly effect, which is not the same butterfly effect as the science thingy, but here what I mean is if I draw anything on my left one, if this is overlapping, everything here will be mirrored right here, and since they're so close, they create a pattern which kind of mimics a butterfly or something that you're painting in, which as an art standpoint of view kind of limits the quality of your model. In some games you can spot that, like everything on the right will be the same as everything on the left, and it kind of looks a bit weird. Some games do that to save some memory on the UV side. Again, that's one more thing that depends from game to game, and you might want to see what you're doing. Alright, so that's enough talk for now. Let's actually get started with our character and start texturing. So what I'm going to do right now is close this, let's make it 3D because why not. So we're going to start fresh. We're going to create a new scene and bring in the object with this guy. So let's go to file, the same thing as we did last week, file, new, and these are going to be the same. Under file, let's select. I'll provide you guys with this object, Chico_low. Let's open this up and hit OK. Let's discard this. Alright, so we have our low poly loaded in. The texture set will be the same, and I think I renamed them as M legs, M skull, and M torso. If you want to personalize it, you can just double click and name it anything you want. Let's close this. I'm just gonna quickly go to my display and make my camera about 35 because 50 bothers me. So now for you guys, your assignment will be to bake this character as well. We're going to talk more about naming our things for baking, as I mentioned in coming lectures. So you will have to bake it down as assignment, but if it's taking you guys too much time and you don't have enough time to do it, I'm providing the baked maps that you will have to import it and assign it to the mesh map slot to start texturing it. So let's do it right now. Let me hit tab and bring my menu back. Let's go to project. This is where all the baked maps will be stored. You can import your textures under textures as well, but let's keep things organized and import that in project. Let's click here. Let's go to add sources, and under baked maps, you will find all the baked maps that I have. Let's pick everything, open it. Let's shift click on this guy, shift click on this guy to select everything and make them texture. And we are going to import that in our project. It's untitled right now. We are going to save it as some name. Let's import it. We have our textures imported in. To assign them to our texture set, let's start with our torso. Let's go to texture set settings, and that's in 4K for now. Let's scroll down. All of these are our textures mesh map slot. To assign those mesh maps, all you have to do is just go to the textures and drag and drop this guy where it belongs. So this kind of feels like a good place to show off the normal map and what it does. So last class we had a simple robot whose normal map was not doing much, but right here we can see a lot more information from our normal map. So let's delete this guy again, and if I zoom on it, you can see if I rotate my lights, I have the shading which is being driven from my low poly, and the shadows are a bit meh. But as soon as I drag in my normal map to my normal map slot, we have all of the details which we had from our sculpt or high-res 3D model, and that's being driven on our low poly. The same thing I can show you in the back one more time. Weird shading from our low poly. As soon as I drag and drop my normal map, it is scanning all the information from our sculpt. Let's bring in our AO map. And as you can see, it's darkening the AO where our map is black. As we discussed in the PBR section, the AO map will be separate in our engine instead of being baked down in our low poly. Reason being, we can and the renderer will have an independent control of changing the AO intensity according to the light, just like the slider. So if you have a light flashing on your character, the AO will be 0. So there will be no AO in our character. If the character is in dark, the AO will be multiplied more. So it's more grounded and it has better shadows. Let's restore this guys. Let's close it. And let's plug all of these guys to their respective slots for all 3 of our texture sets. Alright, so we have all of the baked maps in our respective slots, and if I zoom out, our normal map with our AO map is being visible on our viewport, and most of the things are working. Let's press B to scroll through our maps and see if everything's working. So our ID map is this guy, our AO map, our curvature, our position. So in position, you can clearly see that this guy is not matching with this guy, reason being it's mirrored from this one. This arm is mirrored from this one, and the reason being this hand is a bit weird, especially in our world space. So if I go back to my world space, it is a little bit weird because the hand was baked around here. I think I wanted it to have a bit different. Oh, now I remember it. I sculpted the hand which was here instead of having an actual hand right here. So the reason being it was here is because I sculpted it like that. We don't have any thickness, so there's nothing showing up, and our normal map. Workspace normal again, let's hit M, and that's our final model. One thing I would like to cover about importing things outside Substance or something you baked in another Substance scene is a position map. So sometime you might drag some smart materials or generators and you will see they have a really huge pixel effects which you don't know what's causing it. Reason being is our position map might get compressed by importing and exporting. So in order to fix that, all you have to do is go to bake mesh maps and bake a position map for all of the texture sets. Position map, you don't need a high poly and it will take really less time, about a minute or two for all 3 texture sets. So if you're facing that issue in any of your project, that's how you solve it. So let's close it and we have our scene set up. Let's start texturing it in.